would you say that Taguig has taken out Makati, or Makati is still number one in terms of glamour from a residential standpoint also?
Not Taguig as a whole, but BGC, no, I think BGC is a condominium area. So it won't beat the Forbes Dasma kasi in a Forbes, in a Dasma, you need at least 1 billion pesos to be able to enter that community. So Makati, the Forbes Dasma will still be higher ranking because in the Philippines, mas tayo house and lot community. Vis-a-vis as Singapore, where it's mostly, or Hong Kong, mostly condominiums.
Okay, hey guys, we're back with Carl D, Property Guru. We're gonna do a deep dive on property, but not just that. We're gonna talk about Carl D's journey to success in this entire series with him. So Carl, I wanna start this entire interview with this. 3 years post-COVID, prices already have recovered a bit. If you will try to segment it right now, at least Metro Manila only, Quezon City, Makati, Taguig, Pasig, Mandaluyong, San Juan, that particular area, that corridor, where can they find the cheapest spots, at least a cheap project, cheap area, or say valuable project in that area?
So, okay, hey Marvin, how are you? How's Spain?
Okay naman. Spain is fun to eat. Fun to eat. I love to eat. Pero mas masaya nung kasama ka doon kasi iba yung feeling na may kasamang sobrang yaman eh. So parang hindi niya magandang experience.
So yeah, I had fun with Marvin going to Spain, pero recently Marvin went with the daughter and the wife to Spain, no? So sayang yun nakasama. So your question, Marvin, about areas, no? It's a very difficult question to answer straight. Number one, I think Makati generally has that perception of being mahal. Diba? Even the fringes of Makati are quite expensive, no? Because they rode on the popularity of Makati.
Is there parang a place still there where you can find valuable, or not as much also?
Definitely there are other areas that are not as popular that can be considered upcoming. So the popular ones are the usual, yung BGC, Green Hills, San Juan, Pasig, and most of it are driven by supply and demand. So kunwari, you're talking of the villages, the exclusive villages, usually these are villages that was developed in the 1970s, in the 1980s, so now they're fully built up. When they're fully built up, the families there are quite stable, kaya supply is very low. And when the next generation comes in, or the third generation, they also want to be nearby. And if they're capable, they will buy it at the high price. So that's what's driving the prices up in exclusive villages. But definitely there are other areas for more middle-class people like me. So for you high-end, you have those branded exclusive villages. But it's just really looking at from the concentric circle, diba? The center is the most expensive and you move farther and farther out. That's why kung makita mo yung the MRT is starting to flow out from the Quezon City point of view. It's flowing out to the Fairview and all the way to the Novaliches, then all the way to the San Jose del Monte, Bulacan. That single piece of rail is already a sign that that's where the development will grow. So if I was looking for some property na more affordable, I will look along those line of that MRT7 going outwards to San Jose del Monte, Bulacan. That would be how you analyze it. San Juan is also very expensive, but there are certain fringes, certain areas that are not so popular, but equally good. Diba? Hindi lang super high-end yung pero meron naman, Marvin, in all areas. Sometimes they are unknown villages, but if you see it, maganda naman pala inside. Very decent.
So what I got from that is the center will always be the most expensive, which is what you mentioned, BGC, Makati, then you have your Ortigas, San Juan area. Then when you go out to the fringes, it becomes cheaper. Before I interrupted you kanina, you were talking about you wanted to rank them in terms of I guess cost per area. How would you go about that? Siguro Quezon City, San Juan, Mandaluyong, Makati, Taguig, and Pasig. Did I get 6?
From a residential village point of view, the Makati, the Forbes Dasma is top on the list, no? And then BGC from a commercial property point of view. So yan. And then you have those area around BGC and Makati, the McKinley Hill, yung mga Bel Air, Jupiter. These are very popular. Kasi it's driven by the community, diba? It's a community of wealthy families. So if you become wealthy, you also want to be in that community. That's why the Maslow's hierarchy of needs was developed, diba? Basic needs, and then yung need for security, and then eventually your need for belongingness, and then eventually yung need to be able to, what's that last one? I forgot, yung parang you're able to create self-actualization. Yeah, that's where you are, Marvin. So you understand it. So those exclusive villages are driven by the sense of the need for being in a community or belonging in a certain community. That's also similar to why people buy a Porsche or a Ferrari or a Range Rover, because you want to be in that community. It's really interesting, Marvin, how this Maslow's hierarchy of needs was conceptualized maybe 100 years ago, but it's still applicable today.
To put it into Carl D's context, hindi Range Rover, hindi Porsche, pero Lexus. O, diba? Yun yung actualization area.
It's a Japanese brand. Not so expensive as the others, but for me, it's a good brand. Yeah.
May joke na lumalabas doon na yung sa pinakababang layer, Bitcoin to 100,000. Yun yung mga need ng mga tao. But anyways, you raise something very interesting, that people go where their community is or where they like to go. Pero people who go there also, it's pretty much determined also on their budget and the excess funds that they would have.
Water seeks its own level. So kumbaga, if you are wealthy, then everything becomes close kasi you're in the center, diba? For us who are not so wealthy, you are in the suburbs. Like for me, I live in the suburbs outside of BGC.
Yan na naman.
So when kami pamilya namin, if we go to BGC to visit Marvin, it will be like a field trip for us. Parang, bibisitahin natin si Uncle Marvin tomorrow. You wear your best clothes. We're gonna go to BGC.
Ako naka-black shirt. Look at how you look. Kapitag-pitagan na guy who knows a lot about real estate. Would you say that Taguig has taken out Makati, or Makati is still number one in terms of glamour from a residential standpoint also?
Not Taguig as a whole, but BGC, no, I think BGC is a condominium area. So it won't beat the Forbes Dasma kasi in a Forbes, in a Dasma, you need at least 1 billion pesos to be able to enter that community. So Makati, the Forbes Dasma will still be higher ranking because in the Philippines, mas tayo house and lot community. Vis-a-vis Singapore, where it's mostly or Hong Kong, mostly condominiums.
All of your savings now, all of your investment now, everything that you have now. Tapos tomorrow, suddenly you stumble upon 1 billion pesos on top of everything you have. Will you transfer to Forbes, or will you use the 1 billion for something different?
That's a very good question, Marvin. No? And I'm sure I don't know the right answer because I've never thought about that kind of question, that I will stumble upon 1 billion. But in the current scenario, I think I don't have a desire naman to spend that much money and be in that kind of community. Parang gagawin ko, I prefer the millionaire next door approach. Have you heard about that, Marvin?
The book. Yeah.
Oh, the book. Yung tipong, you just live a very normal life. You drive an old car, pero decent. Hindi siya sirain.
Okay.
And you live a simple life, pero yung pala, meron kang $1 million in your bank. So you're quite comfortable. So I think that's the strategy I resonate more with.
In the long term, when you start computing it also, if you live far, maybe you get something that's cheaper. Will that come out also more expensive over the long term because the traveling cost, the car, the maintenance, the gas, the time away that you could have been productive, where you could actually earn more? Or did you ever make a study on that even if it's more expensive when you're closer to the center, you're more productive, you're not too stressed, you don't even have to spend a lot of time traveling, you don't even have to buy an expensive car anymore because everything is there also. Does it even it out also, even if it's more expensive?
That's where the condominium approach falls into play, di ba? Kumbaga, do I buy kunyari, for a regular working class, do I buy a townhouse, apartment, far away, 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, or I just go to a small condo in BGC or in Makati or along Pioneer where it's cheaper but nearby also. So,
Even Ortigas.
Ortigas, yeah. So definitely for me, I believe that yung quality of life is more important than the perceived space. Di ba minsan people will say, hindi mas maluwag dito eh. I feel that yung maluwag is like is a more mental than an actual physical issue. For example, Marvin, share ko sa iyo. I was able to chance upon a friend, and then they live in a townhouse na 2 levels. And they were complaining na, itong townhouse ko masikip. Move me to a bigger place. I want a bigger space. I want more space. Because my townhouse is tight. But when you go inside the townhouse, I realize one thing eh. Bakit nasisikipan siya? Because there was a lack of cabinetry and shelves. So nangyari, imagine this you don't have shelvings, you don't have like the shelves on my back, yung floor to ceiling. Lahat ng gamit mo, naka-orokan, nasa sahig. What happened to your space na yun? Nasa sahig lahat. Ang sikip. So sometimes, we just miss those kinds of approach. So I love small spaces. I don't mind. Japan mindset. Kung sa Japan, kaya. So I think personally, I would choose closer to where I work, closer to where the kids go to school, because you're right. Yung time is really a resource, di ba? It's a resource na naubos, hindi mo na nababalik. So agree ako with you, Marvin.
One point to add there also is parang the larger your space is also, parang it becomes more incentive na, sige, I can buy that, I'll add that. Then over a cross period of time, what you buy also accumulates. And then, because the more you think you have space, it's easier for you to just keep on buying stuff versus if you have limited space, you'll be more maybe conservative in buying, also in the number of clothes that you would buy, because this is how much closet space you have as well. But yeah, well said, Carl.